Great games in the morning. Great games at your table. However you want to say it. Hi, I'm Jonathan Albin. This is NycosRPG. And this is Game Master Soapbox. And today I'm going back to my more traditional method, and that is I'm going to have a little checklist of things that you want to do when you're building a world to make sure that you're grabbing all the dynamic pieces and putting together a compelling story for your players and prospective players to want to be a part of it. So, in looking at this, we're going to look at a checklist. Now, this checklist works really, really well with the nesting doll structure that we've been promoting the last few days. And so, when you are getting ready to look at whatever specific point you're wanting to build in your story, you'll want to basically walk through this checklist, each with each one of those maps and those stories that you're building. So the first one is the idea of having questions that expect answers. In other words, when you are going to be building a story, if you have a mystery to present, if you have investigations you want players to pursue, you have to find ways to give that information to them. And so your story build, your locational build, should include stuff that leads to those very questions. So, for example, if you are going to have a farmer having difficulty in your scene, you kind of have to figure out what kind of questions the players are going to ask and how to interact with them. For example, the questions you're going to want that are going to want to expect answers. Where are we? What is this place? What makes it different from any place else? What makes this bar stand out? What is the motif? What is the ambiance? These are the kind of questions that expect some kind of an answer, even in a pre-game environment. So be aware that when you're building your world out, even if you're doing it scene by scene, or conversely, if you're doing it section by section, you want to be able to ask and answer these kinds of questions, because it's what the players are going to naturally want to do. This means also that you want to create places that people will remember. If they play in your session and all they can remember is that they were in a bar, but they don't remember the name of the bar, they don't remember any of the personnel, they don't remember who they ran into or even where they got the information from inside the location, you kind of let yourself down because you haven't provided the players with a compelling resource that they're going to want to play off of in the future. So, pardon my, I've got a bit of a light shadow back here freaking me out. So, that means you need to be able to distinguish the place. You know, maybe they won't know how many how many places there are to sit down in the bar, but they will know the sections if you describe them amply enough. If you have an idea of what the place looks like, maybe what it smells like, all the visual cue, all the optical and sensory cues that give your players something to grab a hold of in terms of memories, you can actually make it a place that they will remember and therefore recall what happened week over week. One of my fondest memories of playing role-play games is that every time you run a campaign, the players will sit for 20 minutes and regale each other with stories about what happened weeks, months, years before in a very similar circumstance, which could be anywhere in the world. But if you can have them remember, oh yeah, we're talking about old ospreys on the edge of the Crystal Coast or whatever, then you've got something there. And that means they also should be able to remember the people, and these are going to be the people they're going to want to know. If there's a rich guy in town, if there's a particularly funny, humorous NPC, they're going to want to visit it again. They're going to want to experience that kind of session week over week over week. So create NPCs that they're going to be the people that the players want to know and have engaged with each session. You need to determine what your mediums of acceptable exchange are within the game. Do the townsfolk work in wages, or do they work in cups? And if they work in non-standard coinage, what's the transfer rate? And if there is a standard transfer rate, who determines it? And where does the official measures, where are they officially kept if somebody needs to compare a scale or something? You have official measurers that go out and verify the size of coins. Maybe you have a device that the merchants all purchase that tells them which coins are legitimate and which ones aren't. What in addition beyond money is an acceptable exchange? I had an encounter this last week that was kind of fun, where the person was engaging by transferring the values in terms of time. You do this, and it's worth 15 minutes of something else, and so on. Whatever you come up with for these mediums of acceptable exchange, you have to maintain that week over week and session after session and campaign after campaign, so the players become familiar enough with it that they can accept it and visualize it. This also means that the players need to have room to make mistakes. If you have a scenario that is so wound so tight that one person says the wrong thing, the guards will snap and the place goes to hell, you've got a problem. You need to be able to adjust, because players sometimes will make totally boneheaded mistakes. Or even if they're intentional from time to time, maybe the player had a bad day or whatever. You need to be able to adjust things on the fly quick enough to allow the players to screw up and still not kill the adventure. Now this then leads us off to the next part, which is that your players need to feel like they're part of the story. They want to engage with the world, take a hold of it, and make it their own. And therefore you need to have agency by the players that are going to affect the story elements, and also story element input points where what they do actually is intentionally shifting the story, so that it's not a process of you being a monologuing novelist, and instead you're an interactive storyteller and game master, and therefore you're bringing in player inputs. And all of these are major points, but the reality is that even a new game master, if they use this sliding scale and start at one scale, you can actually build out your adventure answering these questions, and each time you're able to answer all of these questions, you're going to have a perfect adventure for your players. So if you haven't gotten a chance to take a look at my video for the nesting doll mechanism, that's going to be right here. Let me put my finger up here. So this is where I put in the flag for the nesting doll mechanism. And then if you want to learn about how to run the NycosRPG, that's going to be in the end card this time. So thank you for watching this, and this has been Game Master Soapbox with a quick list of world building checklist points, and we'll see you in the next episode. I'm Jonathan Albin, NycosRPG. We'll see you next time.